Hey, what is up guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Gran Turismo 7. Now I do want to give a quick apology that unfortunately internet issues have put me behind over the last few days, so you are probably going to see content that would have typically been uploaded almost a week ago starting to filter into your recommendations and stuff. So I do apologise for being sort of behind the curve at present. Hopefully I can get through everything quick enough to get myself caught up. Anyway, let's start off with the weekly challenges for this week. We're going to head over and go into the overview first. So if we head over to the weekly race tab, we can see this is August week 2. Now, unfortunately, the time I actually got this clip, there was only 2 days remaining. Now, in terms of the events themselves, event number 1 is going to be the Sunday Cup Classic over at Tsukuba circuit. We then move over to Spa on the 24-hour layout for the Japanese Clubman Cup 550. Then we head over to Kyoto Driving Park Yamajiwa, which is of course for the Porsche Cup. Then we have a brand new special event, one that is very enjoyable actually. That is the BAC Mono one make race over at Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. And then to finish off, we have Fuji International Speedway for the WTC 800. In terms of the prizes, pretty decent, so 100k, 200k, and then finally a 6-star roulette ticket reward, which can give you everything from cars, money, and all that good stuff. So one of the better rewards in terms of overall potential. So certainly in terms of the rewards, we're looking at 2 fairly decent weeks in a row. However, I must admit that a lot of these events are pretty lackluster and boring. Honestly, the first 3 are probably some of the weakest selections we've ever seen. Now, in terms of the first event, this is the Sunday Cup Classic. This is at Tsukuba circuit. It's going to be a 3-lap sprint, of course, aimed at some of the slowest cars in the game and some of those classic vehicles. Now, in terms of the event itself, it can be quite fun, but it's certainly just nothing that's going to blow your mind. So let's head over and get into it. Now, I used the Barth. This is one of the sort of, unmodified version. It doesn't have the engine swap. So in terms of the potential of this car, it's still relatively slow, putting out around about 95 brake horsepower. However, at a small circuit like Tsukuba, that is plenty to start beating the AI. In fact, the majority of the AI will just run standard versions of the vehicles they're in. There's only a couple of cars that can really give you a run for the money, that being the Mark 1 Golf GTI, of course some of the Citroen DS Palaces, and of course the Alfa Romeos. Apart from that, you should be pretty good to take a relatively easy win here. Even on the hardest difficulty, I took first place at the end of lap 1 and was done and dusted inside 3 laps with a 12+ second gap. So relatively easy overall to start the week. So first place, tick number 1 of the week, 37,500 credits plus 100,000 credits with that reward. So at least with the first event, you might find some fun in the random vehicle that you might not have used for a long time that you can go ahead and use for the Sunday Cup Classic. Unfortunately for the Japanese Clubman Cup 550 over on the Spa 24-hour layout, this isn't really the case. It doesn't matter what you use. So of course the recommendation is 550 pp. Even if you run that, because of the lack of vehicles on the grid, the sheer length of the event, it becomes a very lackluster event very early on. Even this Subaru here, which is I believe just over the 550 limit, or it might even be below that, it's a very boring event. I was able to give a lot of the cars a decent run for the money without being too overpowered. However, because there's a massive lack of them on the grid, I was overtaking them by around about the midway point, which meant the rest of the race I was just cruising around on my own, entirely fed up and extremely bored. This is a race for me that I feel like less would have been more. 2 laps would have been perfect. With the 3rd lap added on, you're doing an almost 3-minute extra lap just to be able to complete the event, which the majority of it you will be doing on your own, which entirely sucks the fun out of it. This for me is the weakest event of the week, and honestly probably one of the easiest as well. Now, in terms of the payout for this one, it's going to be once again relatively low, 30,000 credits. Of course, if you get the clean race bonus, it's 45k, but you're getting that in about 10 minutes, so not too great. We then have the Porsche Cup. Now, I do genuinely like the Porsche Cup event. However, I'm just not a big fan of Kyoto Driving Park. I think it's one of those original circuits that just isn't that fun. However, there is another key issue. This is limited to around about 650 pp. However, that is a very abusable pp limit, meaning that even if you're matching that, a lot of the other cars around you aren't going to. If you want to make this as competitive as possible, you will need to go around about 600 pp to toughen up the event and make the racing more fun. Just like the Spa event, you'll probably get into the lead relatively early, around about the halfway point-ish. At that point, you're going to be driving the rest of your race on your own. Unfortunately, just not very fun, not very competitive. Whilst I do appreciate the sheer variety of different Porsche that we're seeing, I just think the racing just isn't that good for this event. Maybe it's just me, maybe there's people out there that absolutely love this event, but maybe it's just kind of not for me personally. Now, in terms of the event itself, once I'd taken the lead, I did manage to pull out over a 20-second lead, which is pretty ridiculous. Now, in terms of the tick, that is tick number 3 of the week, 105k with a clean race bonus. I did get a daily marathon of a 6-star, and I did manage to get a credit ticket of 200,000 credits, of course, for completing 3 events. So let's move on to the brand new special event. This is the BAC Mono 1 make over at Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. I really enjoyed this event. In fact, it was almost set up perfectly. The BAC Mono is a very enjoyable car to drive. It provides very close racing, and of course this is a bit of a throwback to one of the driving missions which was added in the endurance update way back in 2022. Now, in terms of the racing itself, it's going to be very close. I also like the fact that we're not starting from the back and having to play catch up. We're already sat in the pack itself. Now, in terms of the best way to race this and get the most enjoyment out of it, I would honestly recommend just keeping the BAC Mono kind of standard. If you need to put on maybe the Sport Softs, then go ahead and do that. Overall, it will produce some very good close racing. It's not the biggest car in the world, pretty much a road going single seater, and that is going to allow you to produce some very fine overtaking. You really just need to be able to pick when you're going to do your overtakes, and honestly, you should be good. I managed to take the lead on the final lap in the first sector, or just after, before heading out onto the Grand Prix layout. Very enjoyable, very close racing. I think most of you guys will probably really enjoy this one, and I do hope to see it return. In the end, we took the win by around about 2.5 to 3 seconds, and that is going to be tick number 4 of the week. Once again, a decent paying event, but definitely not the best that we've seen as the special events. 97,500 credits with a clean race bonus. And that's going to move us on to our final event of the week, and in typical fashion, this is the WTC 800. Once again though, this is a very enjoyable event, taking place at Fuji International Speedway. So what makes this last event so enjoyable, the one at Fuji International Speedway? Of course, it's going to include wet weather, and it's massively variable. Some of your races may be under wet, some of your races may end up having dry spells. Now, in terms of my race, it did start out in heavy wet conditions, went down to intermediates, went back up to heavy wets, and then dried out right towards the end. This means that I need to really use a car that can run long into this race and adapt to different conditions and different settings. This is something that the AI don't really consider. You'll notice that once it goes from, maybe intermediate to heavy wets, they'll then box in for the wets, then they'll have to pit in again for the inters, and then pit in again for the dries. And that's really where I was taking advantage, making up my positions. So I ran no traction control, put it in the majority of the time in fuel mix 6 to, keep as much traction as possible in these tough, tricky conditions, and just made my way up the grid that way. In the end, this did allow me to get a nice, fairly sizable lead. So as you can see, lap after lap, I'm just making up positions every time the AI pits. Again, just take advantage of the variable weather and give yourself a car that can really sort of make use of those different conditions, that isn't going to have to pit constantly. Now, one of the more enjoyable aspects of this event is the fact that you can go and search for those wet spots on the track. This will keep your tyre life as maximum as possible. This way you're not having to, shred them once it starts drying off. So even when we got into the conditions that were pretty much dry with a little bit of intermediates, I was just hunting at the side of the track for the wet spots, keeping my tyres going as long as possible, and eventually did finish off with around about a 48-second lead, taking a fairly easy first place. So whilst it is variable, it is massively manageable, and it is all about how you manage the car that you're using. Now, in terms of this race, it's 210,000 credits with that clean race bonus, so not too bad. In terms of the time frame, it's going to vary once again depending on what conditions your event is under. Now, of course, I did this over multiple days because of, internet issues and such. So I did manage to get a 3-star roulette ticket today. I'm not going to open that one in the video. However, we are rewarded with completing all 5 events, which is the 6-star roulette ticket. So it's time to head over and open up the rewards that we've collected. So first we of course have the daily driving marathon. This was for the first day once I was attempting this, and then unfortunately my internet did cut out just as I was about to start one of the events. So unfortunately I couldn't then carry on. So in terms of the 6-star, we did end up with 500,000 credits. Not too bad from a daily marathon, and it's not very often you'll get a 6-star from that daily. However, we do have other rewards to open as well. The first one being 100,000 credits for completing one single event. The second for 3 events is 200,000 credits. And of course, the best one possible for completing all 5 events is a 6-star roulette. As you can see, the rewards on offer here can be anything from, the special cars that are, hidden behind the sort of invitation system, million credit cars, money. So you can get some decent stuff. I did manage to get myself the SF19 Super Formula Toyota version, so not too bad at all in terms of a pretty short week. Anyway, I do want to give a big thank you to everyone that watches this video and all of my channel members. Again, I'm just trying to get everything back to normal, so apologies for this one being late. Hopefully I can start getting myself caught up now. Again, apologies for the interruption in content, but yes, it should be back every day once again. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your day wherever you may be. Take care, guys. Peace.